Hi, I'm Philippe, your sales productivity coach, and today I want to talk to you about my favorite topic of the 3 stages in the life of a sales manager. Of course, the ultimate stage is becoming a top sales manager, and I want to talk today about this population, unfortunately very rare, about 10 to 15% only of those sales managers are at that stage. And still, I want to explain to you what it is that they're doing that makes them different, at least touch the 3 main things, and also explain to you why they still need to get better, because even though they're very hard to develop to the next level, it is critical also for their success and for the success of their organization that we help them develop to the next level. And that's a critical aspect to making a sales organization grow consistently and become self-sustainable over time. So having a great sales manager is great. That's not good enough though, and I'll tell you why. So top sales managers are great to work for if you're a sales rep. They are masters at leading from the back. They ask great questions. They empower their people and they make them successful year over year. Great sales managers have 100% of their reps at goal, and it's a very delicate balance to be able to get all the parameters right. But they move market share because they grow consistently their business and their company year over year above market growth. Okay, growing 5% in a 6% market growth is not really growing, right? They are also able to grow individually their people and to grow collectively the team. From a production perspective, companies love them. Why? Because if we agree that from a sales rep perspective, if the difference between an A producer and a B producer is about 1 to 2 from a revenue perspective, well, you know how much that is from a frontline sales manager perspective, difference between a proactive sales manager and an okay sales manager? 1 to 5. 1 to 5. And some surveys actually argue that over a period of 3 to 5 years, it can actually become 1 to 10. So pretty big numbers and pretty big difference the top sales managers make in their companies. Now, what makes them so good is not that they are perfect, because top sales managers make mistakes like everybody else. Who doesn't? But they correct them very fast because they have a very efficient early warning system in place, and they know how to watch it and they know how to influence it weekly, even daily sometimes. I call this system the 1 + 1 + 1 = 4 system, and it's like a 3-leg stool. The system is comprised of habits. One leg of the stool is the habits, one leg is the skill. They possess unique skills that I will touch briefly, and finally they inspect the right metrics. They have the right dashboard, and the dashboard changes depending as the team evolved and how the business evolved. So make a long story short, top sales managers I've seen follow the right habits, they inspect the right metrics, and they are a master at a unique skill that I call the value-added inspection skill. Now, their problem, if I may say, is that there are not enough of top sales managers, and they are bound to disappear because they will eventually get promoted to area managers, VP of sales, you name it. And then what happens? Well, unless they know what it is that they were doing that made them different, that made them so good, they can't coach it really effectively. Same problem, sales rep becoming sales manager, right? So when I was at EMC, I trained some of our sales managers, I remember at the Federal Division in Washington, D.C., on sales management best practices, which I had learned myself from top American sales managers in Europe. And how could that be? It's like the same story you probably heard of, America selling the nuclear technology to Framatome, which actually was one of the first company I worked with. We bought the patent from Westinghouse, I remember at the time. What's happening today, 25 years later? Areva is teaching America how to work with nuclear energy. Interesting concept, right? Well, without going that far, let's say that I developed some very strong whispering skills when I was coaching top sales managers in Italy, Germany, everywhere, where I had, very strong cultural differences, and I had to develop very strong content and skills at the same time. But what I helped them do, and the reason this worked great, was those great sales managers were not consciously competent about what it is that they were doing that made them so great. And unless you become consciously competent, you can progress, right? And because I am an engineer, I reverse engineer those best practices. I reverse engineer what they were doing that the others were not doing, and I made them aware of those processes. And once they were aware of that, they could improve and they could coach their next frontline sales. Finally, one last reason, if we need another one, why great sales managers need to be consciously competent about what it is that they are doing that's working so well, is that, being a frontline sales manager is really a very tough job. I personally believe, one of the toughest jobs on the planet. So you can't be in that position unless you have a very strong ego. It's part of the job, right? And you will rarely meet sales managers who have very small ego, and nothing's wrong with that. But if you make the mistake of believing that the reason you're a great sales manager is just because you're just the greatest sales manager on the planet there is. And I met along those years some sales managers who sometimes thought maybe that was the reason they were so good. And if you think you're the greatest without believing maybe that you may mistake yourself for Muhammad Ali, who was the greatest, you run the risk as a sales manager of beginning to think that maybe you can become the next Napoleon. And that is a limiting factor in your career because, as we all know, Napoleon was French. Just kidding. I actually know many French people worth talking to. More seriously, let's put a more serious touch there, but not kidding. Helping sales managers understand that besides the ego, which is part of the job, I'm not saying it shouldn't be, there are habits and skills and processes and dashboards that make them great, can only benefit them. So, for instance, one of my top clients today, like Oracle, who have, they share the best practices that EMC has, that many great sales organizations have. But they asked me to help them also to get their top sales managers become more aware of their best practices so that this would become more self-sustainable over time throughout their organization. And by the way, and that's the only way I can help them improve as a top sales manager, because once I help them understand which habits have which impact on their results, then they can start monitoring things and improving it. I'm an engineer, remember? I'm a process guy. Well, sales management is also made of very simple processes that you can define, measure, and therefore improve. And improving a top sales manager by 1%, I have found, is sometimes worth to a company as much, if not more, as saving a failing, naive sales manager who's struggling in the beginning of the job, or even improving the second category, the reactive sales managers, by even 50%. Because if you are great, 1 + 1 + 1 = 4 will make you the best and will help you make your direct report great.